Welcome everybody to Quarantine Coaching Conversations. I am Coach Gene Clemens. It is a fantastic day. I don't know where you are in the world, but I am in Georgia. It is beautiful down here. I am in the safe confines of my home, despite what our governor would like us to do. And I am looking forward to having a fantastic conversation today with two young ladies that I believe are going to give us some insight and some things into a world that we don't hear a lot about, but is ever expanding, and that is women's football, women's professional football. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Chelsea Ault, who played for the New York Wolves and is currently and works at West Point, which you can't forget about. Is currently doing marketing for the Transatlantic Trophy Tournament. Chelsea, did I say that correctly?
Correct.
Transatlantic Trophy Tournament, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And we're joined by Gabriella Farrell, who is also with the Wolves and works as a strength and conditioning coach, as on top of the many other things that she does. And as you know, she has a family affiliation with the Wolves, and she does a lot of work for them as well. So, Chelsea, Gabby, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. Just want to talk about early on how did you get involved with football? Obviously, for most people, you know, for me, I had a connection to football because we played it outside. Was that kind of the way that you started as a young child, playing outside, or was there something else that brought you to the sport?
So I actually never really grew up wanting to play football just because I was told I couldn't. And so I was just kind of the person that was like, all right, I kind of accepted the fact that it was a man's sport. So I played soccer my whole life. And then once I was 18, I had just moved to a new city, was working at a liquor store, and a girl came in with a flyer. And here I thought it was men's football. So I was like, oh, let me go check out some men playing football. You know, I'm in a new city. And she gave me this disgusted look and was like, no, it's women's. And I kind of like paused and I was like, I need to do that. So I went to practice, the next practice, fell in love and never turned back.
Absolutely. Gabby, how about you?
I actually started playing when I was young. I started playing at 9 years old. I started out like 8 years old as a cheerleader. And my older brother, who's just a year older than me, we always did everything together. And I didn't like cheerleading, so I just wound up next year playing football, putting down the pom-poms and being like, I don't want to cheer for them, I want to play. So my parents were supportive, and obviously they're still supportive. So yeah, I played for, I think, 6 years when I was a kid. And then when I got to school ball, I tried out. But the school didn't like me playing football. The coaches treated me kind of different. And it was a very not encouraging experience. So I realized, like, women maybe shouldn't play with men, and that it is maybe a man's game, even though I never felt that when I was a kid. So then when I turned 18, I tried out for the New York Sharks. And I never looked back after that. I just always kept with it and always had kind of like a chip on my shoulder about that.
So you were kind of the Becky O'Shea, like you were were that girl off the Little Giant who had the cheerleading uniforms on. Like, forget this, I need to be out there playing. That's awesome. And that's an interesting thing you bring up, Gabby, about this being a man's sport, because I've always said that while I don't see an issue with women playing versus men, but I just didn't understand why women couldn't just play with women. There were so many people interested. I can recall in high school, powder puff football was like tackle football, even though you were supposed to be like touch or grabbing flags. Yep. Those girls were vicious, and the way in which they attacked the game, I'm like, I don't understand why this couldn't work. And if you see the advent of a lot of flag football, girls flag football now, and you see the way in which some of those girls are defending themselves or blocking or attacking, it's not really hard to see see how the girls' game could just, transition to its own entity, very similar to the way that women's basketball is not men's basketball. And so just speak a little bit to that and how you see the game and how it's evolved as a women's game and not necessarily as the men's.
Who's that too?
Either one of you. Doesn't matter. Which one of you want to take it?
I'll go for it. So I actually feel very strongly about that. And I know there are like a lot of players at our level that go and advocate for younger females and athletes. And I'm one of them. And I know a few other people like Chelsea is, where we get the opportunity to coach or host clinics that we get to be that voice for younger women that have an interest in football and like maybe started playing flag. And we just like show them some of the skills and drills, and they already have a lot of the basic fundamentals from playing flag football and just like being natural athletes and having aggression and just for a love of the game of football. That it's not a man's game, but it's really hard to kind of it's things that we do have to kind of like convince and are at a point of still needing to advocate for it. So I think just always being there, and like I think there needs to be more developmental years and opportunities. So there are no like leagues or school ball. There's no like funding for that stuff. So I think at this point it's going to be like kind of clinics or leagues that still need to develop. I know that's one of your questions. Like what is the next step? That's far ahead, but I know like that's kind of the direction that like we need to go in, and just like forming those developmental leagues or systems so they can grow into those athletes.
Absolutely. And Chelsea, you spoke about earlier coming from a soccer background.
Yeah.
How do you think that there are a lot of, because I love soccer. It's one of my favorite sports to watch. I love the women's game because I think a lot of times there's just a lot more, there seems to be a lot more teamwork involved in the women's game. A lot of times in the men's game, you see a lot of 1v1 in the men's, a lot of isolation. You get kind of bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you can run really fast. I know that you can juggle, but how does this work into the team game? Do you think that there's a built-in, because of the nature of soccer and how many people on a pitch at one time, how you have to interact with one another, the way in which you have to focus on footwork, and do you think it's a lot of those elements that made it an easy transition for you to go from soccer to football?
Absolutely. I think soccer really, it made a really easy transition for me. I remember the first practice I ever went to, they didn't have a kicker, and they were like, hey, let's see if you can kick, because they heard that I played soccer. And literally in 2 seconds, I was kicking the ball, like just kicking field goals like it was nothing. And I think, like, my background in soccer, I ended up playing every position possible, so including goalie. So the hand-eye coordination and the footwork, it all crosses over. I just think it's a really versatile sport. And actually, to touch with the men's topic, I spent 1 year on a men's football team, and I ended up being just the kicker, because that's a typical thing with a female on a men's team. But I think the biggest problem is a lot of men think that women want to play football with the men, and it's really not even that, because I don't have a desire to be on a men's team. I have a desire to play the game of football. So I don't think I would ever do it again. It was a great experience, but there's got to be a way where we can develop our own league, our own, all of that. The same thing that men have. We don't want to necessarily mix together.
Absolutely. And so, like, one of the things that I've seen, I like MMA, and I'll watch females who participate in MMA, and they'll say, "Oh, I used to go to trainings with my boyfriend, or I went to trainings with my brother, and I kind of saw them doing this, and then I picked it up for myself, and that's how I transitioned in." That obviously, that doesn't happen a lot with football, because of the nature of football, your girlfriend's not coming to football practice every day because there's not really anything for her to do there other than to watch. So what is the carrot? What can we dangle out there to younger women to get them involved with the game earlier? Is there a way? And I know, Gabby, you were talking about earlier development and being able to offer those things. What are some of the things that we can do that can attract young ladies and kind of bring them out of the shell, the people who may have been thinking about, that'd be really fun to do, but they're worried about the stigma that comes with being a female football player, or in a lot of times a female athlete that doesn't participate in the quote unquote girly sports, and the the stigmas that come with that. How can you bring that carrot to them so that they can know that it's okay, that they can be them, but also be a football player?
I mean, I think we're starting to get a grasp on that. Both Gabby and I have worked with the Long Island Giants, which is a youth flag football team, and it's directed at girls, and I think it's huge. They're having these opportunities to start at such a young age, and it changed everything. I also think that it's becoming a lot more common to have girls on teams. I do know girls are still being told, no, you can't play football. But there's also leagues. I know there's a Utah Girls Youth League. I mean, I just think it's slow starting, but it's starting to get there. They're starting to develop youth leagues for specifically girls.
Absolutely. Gabby, you talked specifically about targeting younger girls in camps. Would there be an opportunity through, let's say, whatever international scene? Because I know a lot of times internationally, things get done a lot faster than domestically. Would there be is there an opportunity out there to develop tournaments that would be geared towards tackle football for women at earlier ages? Like perhaps like a tournament that would be based off of age, like an 18 and under tournament, or even like a 16 or 17 and under tournament, where you could specifically target young ladies who want to get involved in football, get them exposed to the tackle game early, and give them an opportunity to compete and stuff.
So I really like that idea. I don't think that it's practical to have a league full of teams. I don't think there will be enough bodies to suit up for that first season. But there has been a lot of talk about starting a tackle football team on Long Island. So we're going to see what comes of that. But that question came up with how would we build the hype for it? And it's actually been spoken about like that a tournament would help with that. I think it would be really cool to have an international tournament because the language of football, it's not, there's no language barrier there. So that would be pretty cool. And we know that from playing that transatlantic tournament. Yeah, so I think personally that the development needs to happen, but there's so many steps that need to happen prior to, suiting up, that if there was a tournament, there would need to be like weeks of preparation for that. And then that would build the camaraderie between the teammates. And like, I think even that alone and just having a tournament where it's like everyone playing this game right now is a girl. And then that would be pretty cool. So I think that is something that I would love to see happen. And if there is any interest in that happening, I would love to be part of it. So
absolutely. I look at the model. I look at the model that they've done with some of the men's international football games, and the fact that they have now, 17 and under, 18 and under tournaments where they put together, and then obviously it's easier because they're pulling from a bunch of young men who've already played the game and have those fundamentals. But if there's a way to, begin to build that in some capacity, and I'm not 100% sure how you would go at the developmental stage of it, but an opportunity for them to see early on, hey, listen, this is something that you can do, and you don't just have to be a soccer player. You don't just have to be, run track, or play softball. I want to talk and transition a little bit about the stigma of being a women's athlete in what I would call the more physical sports. There's a thought process that everybody who participates in sports, they must like women. That's the first thing I hear all the time. And I talk about this stuff because I tell people, like, yo, I want to go see this women's football game. And they're like, why you want to go and see that? It's a bunch of women who like women. I'm like, absolutely not, homie. You should probably come with me. You might be inspired. Because obviously I love female athletes, and an opportunity to put me next to two teams full of female athletes, I just go, oh, okay, good. That's a great day for me. Talk about that stigma and that those assumptions on people, and maybe that being a part of why of what might steer somebody away from playing a sport like football, because they don't want that stigma put on them.
I mean, I struggled with that personally at 18 when I first started playing. It was just a common assumption, and it actually made me mad at the time, because coming from soccer, people should have known based off of what happened at my soccer games that I was bound to play football because of how aggressive I was. And I think there's a lot of women out there that are a lot more aggressive in sports than a lot of people realize. And I just think if women like women, it doesn't even matter. That it's what they put the product on the field. If they're an athlete, at the end of the day, who cares who they like? That's just how I feel. But it used to bother me, and now it doesn't. I mean, people can think what they want. And how we are as athletes.
Gab, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I do. So I feel like kind of like what Chelsea said, I don't feel that is even part of the issue, but I've definitely been on that end of it as well. So I can speak on it that I've had people at kickoff parties or something of the sort, like, bring me over because I look all girly, and they're like, this is the hardest hitting linebacker you'll ever meet. And they're like, whoever it is, they're mind blown, like, a girl this sweet? You're a hard-hitting linebacker? I'd love to see that. And then we're just like, come to a game because you might be surprised. But there is definitely—
And she is.
like a stigma that you can't be both. You can still be a nice person off the field. I'll still help you up after I knock you down.
Really? I do not do that. Not I. I was never that guy.
But yeah, so I disagree. I think everyone has some sort of aggression in them, and if you have that ability to, like, tap into it when you need to, and football is a great place to do that, and you get to discover, like, how strong you really are, and then show it off on the field. So there's definitely a lot of— very empowering. It's very confident building, and I think I've noticed that a lot of women have benefited from having a place where their strength matters, and it's not about your size or, like, who you are or who you like. It's about, like, what you bring to the field. And I know a lot of bigger women. I'm not, like, large, but I have size to me, and people always ask, what do you train for? And I'm like, you should come check it out because it's pretty cool. And I know a lot of our line women feel the same way, that, like, it's nice to have a place where your strength actually makes a difference and you protect people, or you can stop a play from happening, from developing. It's a great feeling, and we don't get enough credit.
Absolutely. I look at the women's game, and its development and the feeling of empowerment that I've noticed that most women who play football have. It's very similar to women's roller derby. I feel like it has that same type of energy where just, like, super empowered people, women who in their regular life you probably may not even think did football, but then you see them get out on the field and they're a completely different person. And then you start to kind of understand where that confidence and that strength comes from, where they pull that from. So it's a great game. And I know that right now across the country, there are several leagues, different leagues and how they operate. Is it more difficult to expand because there is no one overarching body to kind of help to guide everything? Or do you think the fact that it's kind of still grassroots is probably the best way for it to grow right now?
I think in order for us to take it to the next level, I really think we do have to come together as one. We need one league. We need to all join as one. I think we have a lot of women who are very great leaders and have really great ideas. But the problem we're having right now is everybody thinks they can do it. Everybody thinks they can start a league, and nobody has yet to come together and meet in the middle. And I think that's where we're having issues.
I would love to see a league owner be able to stand up and say, I'm going to be the developmental league for women's football. And that way that we will actually, if someone puts their ego aside and is like,
Yep.
This league is going to be dedicated, this is the first level, then this league will be the second level, and then so on and so forth. Right now we can just move laterally because there's so many different leagues and there's nothing better than the other.
Awesome. I feel like I mean, and I've seen development and growth happen both ways, and that's why I'm really interested in it. But I do think that with something like football, when you have so many moving parts, to have an actual unifying body where everybody can fall under these things together would be the way to go. So you believe, Gabby, and I'm assuming Chelsea to a certain extent, you believe it as well, that ego is playing a part in what's keeping these leagues from unifying and being able to become one full body.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen teams that, they're the She Devils one year, and then they're the the Jewels the next year, and it's almost like, okay, well, if you had one overarching body, then you could have more stability in the teams that would then help for it to be something that people could regularly depend on to be there. I think as fans, what's lost a lot of times is as fans, we rely on sports to kind of set our calendar. And the idea, like for right now, like we're all freaking out because there's no baseball. Like, where's baseball at? Right. It's kind of how you set the beginning of your summer. This is how we roll into summer. We end basketball with the finals, and you roll into baseball. There's no baseball now, so we don't have that set on the calendar. When we get into the late summer and everything starts to kind of turn to men's football and okay, well, where's the game at? So there's an idea of setting this calendar. So when you have teams and you don't know if there's going to be a team or not the next year, it makes it harder to then become a real legitimate fan of that team and therefore of that league. You talked about developmental leagues, Gabby, and I think that this is something. I think it's something that the men's game actually messes up with because there's no legitimate developmental league. The only thing there is college, and while college is great, there's so many more people that want to play football than the ones that make it in college. What would be in your perfect world? What would be the ideal structure for the women's game as far as their developmental leagues and professional leagues? I'm talking to you, Gabby. You don't want to mention it. Go ahead.
Well, personally, I think it would be amazing if counties had a girls' tag football. It could be flag, but whatever. Some football team or like youth players to build interest Some high schools have flag football. That's pretty cool, but it's not everywhere. So it's not offered to everyone. And that is the biggest problem right now, because it's something that you consider like after you retire from sports, and maybe it's something that you could have found success in. So I feel like that's one of the things that I've noticed. Women's football players are like, I wish they knew this earlier in life, that I like would have loved to play football growing up or my whole life. But that is something that can change. It doesn't have to continue being that way. So I see us moving in that direction. I know the interest is there. I think like that being the conversation, this being the conversation that most people need to be having or more of, is there needs to be a youth, high school, and then a developmental league. And then from there on, you can, whatever big unifying league can pick up whoever they want. But it doesn't even have to be paid. I think that's the whole thing. Everyone's getting so caught up on the money. That's not what it's about. It's about the product and developing that thing. You need to invest in your athletes and give them something to work towards.
And I think that's a huge thing with women's football, is that you'll notice that I think women truly play for the love of the game.
I agree. You and it's don't diss against men, because there are a lot of semi-pro men's leagues out there that those guys are coming out and playing, and they're actually paying to play. So it's not a diss versus men's, but you see a lot of times now, especially, and I speak about it in one of my other conversations, that there's so many young men that are playing football with the idea of it leading to some type of financial windfall, whether that may be college scholarships or making it to the professional level. It's not just about the love of football anymore. It's a means to an end. And because of that, you lose some of the dedication to the game. So I definitely agree with you. Florida, by the way, Florida is one of the states that has a fully developed girls flag football season, and it is lit. It is like high flying. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got some of the best athletes. It's actually starting to pull some athletes away from track and field, because soccer is in the fall in Florida because it can, so like the idea of having, even not fall, in the winter up there because they can, down there because they can, and so like in the springtime you're getting a lot of soccer players who are playing flag football. You're getting a lot of girls who would normally run track that are playing football. You're getting a lot of girls that play basketball who are playing football, and you see all of these athletes running around the field, and you're just going, man, I wish there was somewhere for them to go after they were finished with high school. And most of them are playing with the idea of knowing that there's nothing for them after, or at least in their mind, there's nothing for them after high school. Like, I'm just doing this because it's fun and I love to do it. So I think that would be a great thing to start there, just to start at the level of every state having legitimate girls flag football, where the girls can learn the game and they can learn the basic fundamentals of the game, and that teamwork that's needed in flag football, that's different than any other sport that they've had to play in the past. I think that would be a great way to start growing the game. I want to pivot into something else, and I feel really strongly on this because I believe in equal rights, and I think that a lot of times when people hear me as a black man say equal rights, they just immediately think I'm referring to black people only and black men only. And one of the things that really, really frustrates me, really, really ticks me off, is these kind of announcements that a woman has been put into a role in football, on a football team, a professional football team, or role on even on a high school football team, where it's almost like, hey, here, we gave you something. Oh yes, you know what? Now we have a couple young ladies who are the offensive quality control coach for this professional team, and I'm like, I look at women like yourselves and other women who've been playing the game for a long time. And then I look at some of these dudes who are coaching, and trust me, I'm in the coaching ranks. I know there are guys who are coaching and they don't like what their experience with football comes from Madden. You know, that's where their experience started with football. So the idea that they're going to throw you a bone and allow you to just kind of have, oh, well, we gave her this job that we can't even really identify what this job does. But yeah, this is a job on there. I feel like it's almost a slap in the face. How do you feel about when you see these announcements, these grand announcements, and people act as if they've given you so much because one person's in this position now?
It makes my blood boil, to be honest. I mean, I was in that position playing for a year on a men's team. You're the token female, and it's not a good feeling. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an athlete. I'm a football player. It doesn't matter what the gender is. And I'm sure Gabby has plenty to say too.
Yeah, I mean, for being someone that's like, I still remember the things, like it's like in there of the things like coaches said to me when I was 13 years old and like teammates said to me. And at the time it obviously resonated because I still remember it 12 years later, but it's definitely wild to have that be the stigma that you were talking about earlier. And then at this point in my life where I am looking for coaching opportunities, to still have that in my head and just remember those are the people that I'm talking to when I'm looking for a serious job, because I want to give back to the game and continue to grow and learn from other coaches. So I still have that in my mind whenever I talk to any colleagues that like in our off season I coach youth tackle football, but I've been doing that for a few years now, and I feel like I've grown as a coach, and I love to work in a high school, but I do keep that in mind that it's like now as the handouts become more like a golden ticket, it's more like serious about looking for an opportunity that you can grow as well, that you'll be taken seriously. It's not just about going anywhere and getting a job.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I will add, though, I will say that it does help with motivation. I mean, it does, like that anger that you have for being that token female, it does motivate you to just go out there and kill it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure, like, and this isn't a diss to those ladies that are getting these opportunities. My real issue is that those ladies should have had those opportunities years ago. Some of those ladies who have gotten opportunities. I know the two ladies that are down in Tampa, like they've been coaching forever. They've been involved with the game forever. Like to just now get this opportunity is crazy to me. I tried to find a parallel for it, and what I came up with is I was thinking about oh gosh, her name just popped out of my head, but it'll come back. A women's national team member who wants to kick in the NFL. She wants to be
Tony Harris.
Tony Harris?
Is that
no,
not
her.
No, she's not a kicker. She's not a kicker.
No, she wants to be. She's on the women's national team, and she wants to kick. It's gonna irk me if I can't think of a name, but it's.
There's too many of them. I can't help you.
Well, I know all of them. Like I'm in love with the women's national team, soccer team. They are awesome.
I know who. I thought you were talking about the national football team.
No. Sorry. The national soccer team.
Was it Carly Lloyd?
Carly Lloyd. There you go.
Yeah.
Carly Lloyd wants to be a kicker, and she wants to kick in the NFL. And the idea that, you know, she would get the opportunity to a lot of people is like, oh, well, you know. But at the end of the day, all that really should matter is that she should kick. I mean, that she can kick. So I started thinking about it in terms of parallels. Let's say that she got an opportunity to kick. Would it be something that's novice? Would it be something that people go, oh, okay, well, we've seen that now. But when you think about the explosion of Australian kickers, one team went to go and get an Australian kicker, and then all of a sudden, 5 years later, like a third of the or a fourth of college teams had a kicker from Australia that they took off an Aussie rules football team. So why can't the same explosion happen for women? If you feel like one woman would be a great field goal kicker, why does it have to be a novice? Why aren't you bringing in 6, 7, 8, 9 different female kickers to try if that's what they want to do? It's like, to me, it always seems as if it's well, we're gonna test this out, or we're gonna give you something just so we don't have to hear from you again. And that's the part that makes I read between the lines anytime I look at these things. You know, and for me, and a lot of times on my end of the spectrum, it's with minority quarterbacks, and the plight that they've seen. And even though we have guys who are going first round, when you start to look rounds three on, they all look the same. And so, you know, you get people who are really, really good who don't get this opportunity. And I feel the same way about the women's game, especially when it comes, because if someone goes, well, okay, the physicality is not the same. I'll agree with you on it. You know, if you want to say the physicality is not the same, you can't have women out there with the NFL. Okay, they should have their own league, so that shouldn't really be an issue. But when it comes to coaching, there is no excuse. When it comes to coaching, there's no excuse. And that's why what really gets me upset is because the same way that Bill Belichick never played football and was able to learn the game and develop and understand the game at a level that makes him the greatest football coach in the world, is the same way that Gabriella could do it. And so, like, there's no difference there. So it shouldn't be a stigma or a quote unquote golden ticket. It shouldn't be a golden ticket for Gabby to get that opportunity to coach on high school. It should be, she really understands the game. She can help us. We've got guys on our team, and I can speak to you as a high school coach. There are a lot of high schools that have guys on the coaching staff who don't really know that much about the game. They're learning, and they're trying to get better on the job. Why couldn't that be a woman? Like, what's the difference? And so it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I keep trying to reach out. And then, unfortunately, just in my area, I haven't found a lot of people interested. But it's definitely something I always pay attention to with the women's game, because that's the thing that no one can say, oh, well, there's this. There's no excuses when it comes to coaching. You either have the knowledge and you have the ability to transfer that knowledge to someone else, or you don't. It has nothing to do with how big or how strong or how fast you are. None of that matters. Last thing. So you have this. I want to get into what you're doing, because I want you to be able to explain it better than I can. The Transatlantic Trophy Tournament, if you will. Chelsea, I know that you're doing marketing for them. Tell us about this tournament and exactly what it will entail.
So we have a very dear friend of ours, Dana Sparling. She is a part of the Women's Gridiron Foundation. And last year, was it last year, Gabby? 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 2018, we had the opportunity to go over to London with the New York Sharks and play in an international tournament. And it was called the Transatlantic Trophy Tournament. And so now what we're doing with the Women's Gridiron Foundation and Dana is we are going to host it in hopefully September in New York City. And we're just trying to get some international women's teams over to the U.S. and just get us out there to play, expose us, and just get the women's family together and just enjoy the sport like we love doing.
That is awesome. And so right now, I know everything is kind of up in the air because of dealing with these crises that we've had, and especially in New York City, which has been hit the hardest. Has there been any talk about possibly moving the tournament somewhere else? Has there been talk about possibly pushing it back to another time that might be more feasible in the timeline? Or right now, is everybody kind of in a holding pattern and just waiting to see how things open up in our country and in our world?
So we do have a deadline of like the end of May before a lot of these international teams need to make a decision before they lose money. So we're kind of at a holding spot right now, just trying to see how this plays out. But if for whatever reason we do need to cancel, it won't be canceled entirely. Like, this tournament is going to happen, and we're going to make it happen one way or another.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what would be the format? Would it be like a true tournament, or would it be more just like various exhibitions of teams playing against each other?
I believe it's going to be like a round robin. Gabby, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have a set schedule yet just because everything's up in the air, but I want to say it's over a couple of days, and it's going to be like a round robin type tournament.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking about when you put all those football players together in one area. I can imagine that was it the first one in London must have been just bananas.
Oh,
like I don't understand how I was not there. I'm really upset right now about it, but that had to be wild. I mean, I know, and then I know if you drop all those football players into New York, it's going to go bananas as well.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really hoping. I'm really hoping that it happens because I just want a built-in excuse to come out and just hang out with everybody. So that's going on. The leagues, I'm assuming the leagues, Gabby, is there a plan to kick things back up? Or are you kind of like just holding the same way that a lot of the men's leagues are doing, particularly right now?
Yeah, the WFA hasn't made any announcements yet, so there's still some hope. If anything, the season's going to be starting like in June or something, but just the way things are in New York right now, I don't see us being able to arrange practices, and football being a not social distancing sport, especially a linebacker, you're very up and personal with so I don't see how we'll be able to prepare in time. We do have a big rookie class this year, and I don't see how they can learn everything they need to learn that would have been up until this point. We've been doing some virtual practices, but just in the terms of like logistics and like we don't have like fields and things reserved. So the short notice, and then everyone is in the same boat. It's going to be pretty messy if it does start late, just because now we're conflicting with other seasons. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we're just holding on, and some people are remaining hopeful. And I just personally, just knowing what it's like right now, I just don't see how it will happen, how it will work. But the WFA still hasn't made an official announcement yet.
Got you. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times when you're talking about smaller leagues, and I mean just smaller entities financially, you can't afford to take that time off. It really does affect the bottom line of a lot of these leagues and these teams. I know that I've already felt the effect of it. The college that I attended to get my master's degree just folded, Urbana University in Ohio. So, RIP to Urbana University. But there goes a lot of young men that I coached when I was coaching in college. A lot of young men who graduated from there who no longer have an active alma mater. And I know that's probably not the only place. It definitely won't be the last. I know a lot of smaller businesses that have closed their doors for the foreseeable future. And it's always a fear of mine that will happen with a lot of these smaller organizations who just have to kind of move on with life. They can't keep waiting or holding. So hopefully we don't try to rush things back as a country, because we don't need any ridiculousness happening. But I also hope that we're able to get back to some normalcy in time to be able to, if not salvage seasons for this year, put things in place that allow them to be able to restart next year when they're able to do so. I'm gonna get you out of here on this. if you had one thing, if there was one thing you could snap your fingers, you're wearing Thanos' glove now, and you're able to snap your fingers and you can change one thing about the game, what would be the one thing that you changed immediately, right now? The one thing that you say, man, if this could change right now, boom, we're good. Like, we're on the right track. What would it be? I'll start with you, Chelsea.
Oh, great. I have a lot. I mean, I guess the biggest thing the first thing that comes to mind is just the acceptance of women playing the sport. I mean, that's a huge thing. There's not a lot of people that accept it or believe that we should be playing, and I think they should watch us and we can prove them wrong.
Absolutely. Gabby, what about you?
Snap my fingers and change one thing about the game. Man, if it was anything, it would be transportation. I wish teleportation existed.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's horrible. I hate road games.
Oh my gosh.
And imagine the opportunities become limitless. International tournament every weekend. Let's go.
True.
Absolutely. Teleportation would be fantastic. I absolutely hate getting on a bus. Like, I don't like being on a bus for like 30 minutes, let alone for, 8-9 hours or 12 hours or even more. I remember those days in college, and those days in high school, and not fun. So that's your one thing you're going to change. You're going to change one mythical thing, or you're going to change something that's actually tangible. You're going to waste your Thanos snap on something that I can't actually make happen. Goodness.
There's so many.
Well, in a realistic sense, I would snap of a finger establish that I would say start at the youth level, because then when they get to the next level, there's the rest. So girls tackle or flag football team, just standardized across the board. Think it needs to exist in order to think to the next levels.
Absolutely. You know what? Something just occurred to me, and I think this actually might work better in women's football. I've suggested it before in men's, but it's way too much money there. Do you think there's an opportunity that you could get all of the leagues to come under one governing body, but have it as a promotion and relegation situation where teams, you have that top level of teams, and every year one or two teams get relegated to the second level and two teams get promoted, and therefore you're constantly being able to keep having teams to excel to be at that next level. And then those teams that are not getting it done at the top level, those teams go down, and now they know they've got to continue to work to get back up. That's the model that has seemed to work in soccer forever when it comes to their leagues and their first league, second league, and especially in EPL. I mean, it's legendary in EPL what they do with that. Like, is that something that could possibly be a model for women's football that allows those teams to continue to or those leagues to continue to have their, okay, this is my league or these are my teams, but some of these teams may be able to advance to the next level?
I do have maybe a question or a hypothetical question. What is bringing in more people to renovate the rosters? So, like, if you're going to the next level, I assume, just like our WFA league, if you're going up through divisions, you have more people on your roster because we do it by roster size. So Division 3, you don't have that many people. If you're going up to Division 2 because you have a good team, you're winning out the seasons, and you're bumped up to Division 2, what are they getting for winning out the season that would bring in more new people so that they can bump up?
Well, I think that's a part of whatever the structure is, for the levels. And I'm not even sure of how they handle it. I mean, I know that if you go up in the EPL, if you go to the first level, you're obviously going to see a great financial bump in that. But that's because the EPL is so wealthy that that financial bump is going to be felt, like it's going to be shared with all the teams. But a lot of times what happens in the EPL is the two teams that elevate are many times the teams that end up getting relegated back down the next year because they weren't able to get, above that line. I think what helps the women's game is that I think you'll have a lot more teams that are even. And so the fight to get to the next level would be one that, makes it to where if you come up from the second division to the first division, you're not at such a gross disadvantage that you're just going to get relegated back. You're not just going to come up there and get your head beat in every week and then, drop back down. You'll go up there and actually be able to compete because the level of talent isn't that different between the first level and the second level, but it gives that team something to work towards. And then maybe that first level gets to a point where it has some type of broadcast, contract that is able to put some type of money in the hands of those particular teams to allow them to be able to fund their teams better. I'm not actually sure how it will work out because I don't know what the market numbers or anything would be for it, but just kind of way of structuring things to where the one league that you said I wish an owner would stand up and go, my league's going to be the developmental league. That owner still has an opportunity to see teams from his league advance all the way to the top, if that makes any sense.
I think our issue with that, it could work possibly in the future, but right now we have such an issue with numbers that the divisions are divided so much because Division 1 has 50, 60 plus girls. Division 2 has 30 maybe. And then Division 3, you could have 11. So I think the numbers are just so wide that it just makes it difficult. But Gabby, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that in the WFA, if you win a championship, they try and bump you up.
Yep, that's how they started it last year. Yeah, last year.
Awesome. So there is a level of that kind of going on already within the league itself. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be curious how it plays out because I believe there was a D3 team that has consistently won a championship and just got bumped up.
Did they get bumped up to D2 or did they get bumped all the way up?
D2.
Okay, yeah.
But I think they're going to run into the issue of numbers. It really just comes down to a number game.
Well, you gotta hope that being bumped up to D2 maybe draws in some people who've played on the D2 level who are looking for a new home. I feel like that's probably where it would be because I don't know if they bump down a D2 team or not, but there has to be more people that want to play at that D2 level than actually get an opportunity to play. And so
I think that would be realistic if we had more support from our league as far as getting us numbers. Right now, it's the team owners are responsible for getting all of the players that you have on the team. Gabby's responsible.
Good job, Gabby.
For all of the players. And it's hard. I think if we had league support, it would be a lot different.
Awesome. Well, I'll get you out of here on this, on that one, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it. Again, Chelsea I'm sorry?
You started to say ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I was about to go into my wrap-up thing when I go, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And then I was like, in between that and saying ladies, trust me, yes. Anyway.
I had to call you out, sorry.
You feel free. I don't mind at all. But I am in the presence of beautiful women, and that is a great thing for me. Beautiful, strong women. Chelsea Ault, Gabriella Farrell, Gabriella Farrell, Chelsea Ault, both members of the New York Wolves. I really do hope that everything works out with the league and being able to kick off this year at some point. I'll be looking forward to that Transatlantic Trophy tournament and trying to, make sure I reserve my tickets or get, be involved with it in some capacity. I got to talk to Emory and see what we can do to kind of jump in there. I need to be close. I need to be in there. So.
Oh yeah, we'll get you in there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Why don't you do this? Give everybody a social before you get out of here. How they can follow you if they want to get in contact with you. If they want to join your leagues. How would they get a hold of you? Chelsea, go ahead.
Man, you're putting me on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot with your social.
Gabby, go first.
Go ahead, Gabby. Give everybody your social stuff.
NY Wolves Football is one. Second one is WFG3, I believe, is the Transatlantic Tournament one. Look that up, Charles. But,
say that again, Gabby. Say that again a little louder, please.
Well, we have NY Wolves Football for New York.
Okay.
And then the Transatlantic Tournament, I'm pretty sure it's.
You can look up Women's Gridiron Foundation on Facebook, and you should be able to follow it from there. Otherwise, Instagram, we have WGF Dana 33, and that's Dana's Instagram account, and she will post updates on the Transatlantic Tournament.
And if you want to keep in touch with the cool stuff we're doing, there's another Instagram account we just made today or this past week of women's football workouts, and that has a bunch of good content for any female athletes looking to train in the off season.
Okay. Awesome. And again, ladies, we really do appreciate you coming on with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been quarantine coaching conversations. I've been Coach Gene Clemens. You know where to find me at Gene Clemens everywhere. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing to the channel, Coach Gene Clemens. We appreciate everything that you do out there when you join us and you show your support. We're continuing to move towards those numbers, those goal numbers. And once we hit those goal numbers, we'll continue to try to go for something else. Until then, I've been Coach Gene Clemens. You have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Coach.